Welcome to the next episode of vSphere Breakroom Chats. I'm Shobhit Bhutani, Product Marketing Manager here at VCF Division Broadcom. I'm the Product Marketing Lead for AI/ML and Gen AI. I lead the messaging and positioning of AI/ML. In this series, we bring VMware and partner experts to discuss VCF and associated technologies. These experts share their backgrounds, industry trends, and general tips for IT experts and our customers. I'm very excited today to bring my close peer, Justin Murray, Product Marketing Engineer, VCF Division at Broadcom, in today's episode to discuss the newest release of VMware Private AI Foundation with NVIDIA. This will be a two-part series with Sean Kelly being the speaker in part 2 of this episode. So we'll get started. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you very much, Shobhit. Very good to be here.
Wonderful. Let's get right on. It's an exciting time for Broadcom with the release of VCF 9.0. As part of this release last month, June 17th, we also released several new capabilities in Private AI Foundation with NVIDIA, VMware Private AI Foundation with NVIDIA. Can you just give us a quick overview of those broad strokes of that?
Yeah, thank you, Shobhit. Yes, it is a big release and a lot of new enhancements in private AI. So the themes in this release are largely to do with enabling privacy and security, simplifying the infrastructure for the data scientists so that they get to work faster, and then very interestingly, streamline model deployment, so make that easier. So if you put those three together, what we're really doing is making the deployment of AI applications simpler and easier on VCF. That's the overall view of it.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, streamlined model deployment, right? That broad category, right, of the release, that's kind of a very new, very exciting place for it, and probably one of the biggest highlights of this release, right?
Yeah.
Do you mind just giving a little bit about that, and then we'll cover a lot of that in a lot more detail in Sean's part 2, right?
Yeah.
But do you mind just sharing a little bit more about that category of release, as well as what role does the new agent builder service that we announced last year, but now we're making it generally available, play as part of the streamlined model deployment?
Sure, Shobhit. Yes. Model deployment is what it's all about for users of AI. So bringing models down into on-premises is a big step to begin with. That's storing the model in a model store, which we support Harbor for, and then bringing that model to life in order to test it or run it in an application. That's the model runtime service that's new in Private AI 9.0. The second service that's new there is helping you with data indexing, data storing into your vector database. And now that you've got a model running from your Harbor repository loaded into the model runtime and your index data, putting them together, getting the payoff is really what the agent builder does for you. It builds an agent, a decision maker that chooses how to handle any incoming request. So those three together are brand new services in VMware Private AI Foundation 9.0, and they're extremely powerful and useful to a data scientist who wants to get the work done quickly.
Wonderful. Very nice. And the API gateway being the fourth one, right, on top of that.
Yep, that's another one.
Yep. All right. So I know this episode is not a lot in detail about the streamline one model deployment. We'll talk at length with the audience for the next episode. But let's jump into the next one, right? Into the simplify infrastructure management. We're infra people at the end of the day, right? Number one job has always been that. Now there's a new capability in that called vGPU profile visibility. Do you mind just kind of explaining what that is?
Yeah, that's a good question. For a long time now, we've been using our VCF operations to see the physical GPUs. What are my physical GPUs doing? But as you know, VMware and NVIDIA have a partnership to virtualize the GPU. We call that vGPU. And so you can carve up your physical GPUs into parts and allocate different parts to different VMs. And that gives vMotion and DRS and a whole bunch of great benefits. Well, what is the layout exactly of my virtual GPUs across the physical cluster? That's what vGPU visibility gives you for the first time. So in the vCenter vSphere client now, you can see exactly what's occupied where by what vGPUs. And I'll show you an image of this in a few seconds here, but it gives you the ability to do capacity planning, to say, if I were to have 8 more of those vGPUs in my cluster, what would it look like? Would it even be possible? It allows you to predict what you're going to do with vGPU profiles. So it's a very powerful thing for the infrastructure manager to use.
Wonderful. Now, there's also, air gapping support available now as part of the enabled privacy security, right? Because we got to end with privacy security always about stuff, right? Where it's VMware Private AI.
Yep.
So, do you mind just explaining what air gapped is?
Yeah, so many of our sophisticated customers want to be completely disconnected from the internet, for example, or safe from external viewing. And so air-gapped is the concept of not having any connection for downloading components, which is the traditional way to use the NVIDIA NGC, for example, NVIDIA GPU Cloud. So what we've done in the engineering teams, both at NVIDIA and at VMware, is combed through every component and made sure that it's not making external calls outside of the enterprise so that it's air gap safe. So we have our own private repository of models. We have our own private repository of containers. It's all within the enterprise. And now we've combed through all the components on both sides and make sure there's no external calls as there used to be in the early days. So that's the main air gapped move that we've made in 9.0. Yeah.
Fantastic. So really good description, Justin. Now let's get to the coolest stuff. That you're the rock star. Your demos are get a lot of excitement in the audience. So I'm excited if you can share a demo
Sure. Let me share my screen here.
and more than one if you have time.
Yeah, I'll give you a very, very quick look at vGPU profiles here. This is what you're looking at here. And,
Mhm.
for free, almost for free, you construct these wrappers around your vGPU profiles, like you see grid A104C or A140C. And this is the vSphere client, so you haven't done anything to get here. You get this in the product, and you can see exactly what's been consumed of that GPU profile and what's not available anymore. So this is a way of determining if I were to try to use this A104C, well, it's just not available to me. And this is largely because I've reserved the GPUs in this particular example. So you can see the maximum instances. There are 3 physical GPUs available to me here, 2 of which have already been used. And because of that, I'm not able to use any instances of this virtual GPU profile in the bottom. So that's a very, very simple example of vGPU profiles. Let me switch gears here now into the services. And in here, you'll see a hint that we've done work already in deploying a model. There's a model endpoint deployed in the model runtime service, and there is a knowledge base already built. Think of knowledge base as my vector database with my index data in it. And so what the agent does is takes those two things, a running model that's running, and I have an endpoint for it. An endpoint is nothing but a URL for talking to the model. And that's actually operating through the API gateway that you mentioned as a safety mechanism so that the model itself is not exposed. And my vector database has my private data in it. And what you're going to see me do now is bring those two things together via the agent that I create. And this is really the end of the process, if you like. I'm creating an agent here that's going to be for internal product information, private data. So it's a chatbot to answer customer requests. And the first thing I'm going to tell it is, what model do I want to use? I want to use Mistral Instructo 2, which I've brought to life earlier using the model runtime. And I also want to switch on my data indexing. And I created a knowledge base earlier called memory tiering, which is a feature that we brought out in vSphere 9 that might be private until the time that we ship it. So I'm going to retrieve data in chunks of 500 tokens, and I'm going to ask those tokens to be exactly similar. And whenever I have a reference to a document, I'm going to append it to the outcome so that I know exactly which document gave me the answer. That's a document that was stored in the vector database. And actually, if somebody asks the same question twice, I'm going to store the chat history so I don't have to repeat going through the entire cycle here. And there are various things I could do like session expiration, etc. But let me just create my agent here. And now it's created. The agent is running. It's got a model. You can see the name of the model here that was constructed previously. It's also got a vector database loaded up with data called memory tiering, and it's got a strategy for retrieving data from it. So now I'm going to type in a question here on the bottom right-hand side, which is really just a test bed for this agent. This agent will be used using its APIs by other applications. But I'm going to ask, what is the VMware memory tiering feature? And say send, and I go off to the vector database, retrieve the appropriate chunks, and process them through the model. So that's the answer that you could read if you were a customer service representative trying to answer this question to somebody on the line with effectively company private data there. So that's a very quick view of agents as they appear in VCF 9. And previous to that, we looked at the vGPU profile that's being used by this agent under the covers. Okay, that'll be the demo for today.
Wonderful. Very, very cool, right? So, like you mentioned, we basically have model endpoints, right? And then model endpoint is now connected back to a local data source, right, to the data indexing and retrieval service, and combined between both of those. Oh, there you go. So showing on the screen as well at the bottom, right? That's the model endpoint. And from there on, you create a chatbot, and that chatbot really helps you answer much more smarter questions, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You're combining the model endpoint with a vector database called a knowledge base, bringing them together in the agent. And these agents are programmable, so you can change their behavior. You can tell the model to do different things or retrieve different data. This is all going to be used via its API by an application that you might write in Open Web UI, for example. Write a specific application. So this screen on the right-hand side is not the end user application. This is a test bed for testing the agent that I've used here.
Fantastic. Excellent. You can stop sharing, Justin, because we're now coming to a close, right, for this episode. Really, thank you so much, very much for joining me, Justin, today. Really exciting demo and really exciting conversation.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. It's great, great having you today, Justin.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. All right. Love this conversation with Justin today. Stay tuned because we're going to come back soon enough with a second conversation with Sean Kelly for the rest of a deep dive into the streamlined model deployment category. So if you like this episode, join in for that one. This is your host, Shobhit Bhutani, signing off. Have a fabulous day, evening, night, and week. Bye-bye till next time.
Bye. Thanks again.